Hey everybody, one more time with Joe. Yay. Okay. Joe's got a lot of free time. So I don't have well, right now I have some, but anyway, we'll get to it. So this is Joe's last thing. And I'm gonna try to be more specific because it's just one. I'm gonna deal with this. Okay. So this is on the firmament issue. So let's just be honest, okay? The Bible is not always very clear on every certain term. And there are times when God just doesn't give us specifically what he's talking about. And there is a little liberty for us to fill in the blanks. Now, you may like it, you may not like it. Okay. And then sometimes people go a little very literal or go way off and go in the opposite direction. Okay. To me, the Genesis account is God telling Moses, right? This is how I created in a very simplistic term. He did not get explicit about exactly how he did everything. Why? Well, because we have 3-pound brains that's not going to be able to take all that in. So, and Joe kind of admits to that. So when we talk about the creation account, it's not always going to be so absolutely explicit, but when you read it and you see things, you can say, could this possibly be? I used to joke with my kids, with my students, and they would say, well, how are we going to know this? How are we going to know this? And I would always joke that when you get to heaven, there's a great big whiteboard with all the questions you ever had, because everybody was like, well, I want to go ask Paul about the thorn in the flesh. You got to imagine that after Paul being in the presence of God for 2,000 years, and every person whoever Christian who shows up goes, hey Paul, what's that thorn in the flesh? Hey Paul, what he's probably pretty tired of answering that question. So there's the big whiteboard of Paul's thorn in the flesh. Oh, that's what it is. What's firmament, Lord? Oh, that's what it is. Okay. So do I have all the answers? No, I don't have all the answers. But here again, so this is what Joe says. Being literal is the best way to communicate clearly. In every day, going back and forth with people and trying to get them to do things and being specific on how you want to do things, yes. Explaining the creation account, okay. If you want a coworker that the printer at the end of the hall isn't working, yes, Joe, I get that. Okay, so your materialistic worldview, you're plugging that in. Okay, so I get that. I understand what you're trying to say, and yes, it's not extremely clear. Okay, on exactly what firmament. I took the story and tried to make it relatable. But if you want absolute, definite specifics that are literal, okay, it is what it is, what the text says. Go with that. All right. So I said however, if you look at the narrative and the flow of the story in the beginning, time, beginning in the beginning equals time, heavens equals space, and earth matter. This is just more I guess he's saying eisegesis. I don't see this eisegesis. I see it as exegesis. I see that this is basically putting it in, yes, 21st century terms. Because why is God going to speak to Moses about space, matter, and time when these are concepts that he doesn't need to know, nor does he care to know? But for us now in the 21st century, we do. So when you do biblical interpretation, or when you do biblical reading, okay, it's read the text, interpret the text, illustrate the text, apply the text. Okay, I'm doing the illustrate the text. So when I'm using time, when I'm in the beginning time, I'm illustrating what that means. It's an illustration. Okay, and then giving an example right? And then applying it to us today. Take it for what it's worth, okay? Okay. As a Christian who believes in the 21st century, you interpret these passages through the lens which is very different from that of the viewpoint of Copper Age author who wrote it. Okay, so what the point is, okay, that the person who wrote it, okay, was getting inspiration from God who told him what to say. Now, you can accept or reject that. That's up to you. Okay. And yes, God is dumbing it down because Moses didn't need to know every little detail. Now, we want to know every little detail because we're very driven to, oh, I want to know how everything works. Okay. And that's the other reason God didn't tell us everything. Because if he told us everything, he said, this is how I did it all, what would leave us to do? So leave us a little mystery for us to go dig and find it. Uh, I was getting straight to Newton. Sir Isaac Newton said that that was the reason for science and that he loved science is because he wanted to know how God did things. Because that's all science is. Science is discovering how God did it. And so he left that door open for us to figure that out. I'm sorry, my um, my computer is sitting on a table that's not very sturdy. My apologies. You claim the end beginning means that time was created, but there is no clear way. There, okay, I'm sorry, it's hard for me. But that is in no way clear. Why? Why is that not clear? I mean, in the beginning. Beginning means the beginning when it started. So it's logical that prior to the beginning there was what? What was prior to the beginning? Nothing. There was nothing. So the beginning is the start of what? Something. So what's the first thing that happened? Well, for it to begin, there has to be an element of what? Time. I don't have a beginning if I don't have time. When am I beginning to count time-wise if I don't have a beginning? My birthday is the 30th of November, 1964. That is my beginning. For me, time started when? In the beginning. 11/30/1964. Now, if you want to take that back, you can take it back to conception. And I would be okay with that, except I just don't know when that happened. Sorry. Intimate details. Anyway, so, but there's a beginning. That's when my time officially started, when I was born. So, time for all of us, for the creation, started when God said in the beginning, the clock now runs. He started the clock. He started time. Moving on. In the NRVS, he loves that translation. I'm not sure why. It's okay. It's not my pick. But I like ESV. It's a lot simpler. Translation: this passage is translated into English when God began to create the heavens and the earth. Okay, so doesn't change the meaning. In the beginning, still in the beginning, when God began, he had to start. What did okay, to begin means to start something, right? But to have to begin means you have to have time. I don't see why that concept's hard. But anyway, that's pretty different implication. I don't agree with you. Anyway, if you want to know more about the origins of language, yeah, I know about that guy. We're going to skip over him. Genesis 1:1 say the beginning, the author of Genesis had no concept of outer space as we understand it. That's absolutely true. He didn't, and he didn't need to. Need to know. There are some things that are need to know. And for Moses, he didn't need to know it. Didn't affect him. And oh, by the way, doesn't affect the narrative of what the actual Bible is about, which is a redemptive narrative of mankind to God through Jesus Christ. That's what the Bible is about. The creation story is just getting us to where man is and to the fall. Anyway, let's keep reading. As we understand it, and this text cannot mean three-dimensional space. Why? I mean, you say stuff, but you don't say why it can't. Why can't it? In general sense, without any space, there would be all water How do you know that? I mean, you say stuff, but you don't say how do you know that? You just make it as if it's a fact. No, that I don't see where do you get your facts from? I mean, you weren't there. Were you? I mean, I don't know how old you are, Joe, but you don't seem that old, brother. Yeah, you seem rather young. I mean, you're probably not as old as I am. Anyhow, uh, finally, Earth is about an unbelievable minuscule portion of matter in the invisible universe. True, no doubt about that. I would totally agree with that. Universe, but the Copper Age author of the Genesis did not know that Earth was everything he knew. And that's all he needed to know because it wasn't relevant for anything else. Didn't affect him. Why would he care? God told Moses what he needed to know. He didn't need to know anything else. That's it. He probably did have some awareness of creation myth at the time. Myth according to who? Again, you weren't there. You're just making an assumption. Where did I leave off? He probably didn't have an awareness of creation myth of the time, though, and used some of the elements from his own story. Everything initially began water. There was being some dome over the earth. Okay, here again, a lot of assuming here. A lot of assuming. I can't. You think that, but I mean, you talk about evidence and proof. You have no more evidence or proof than I have. I mean, your side of the coin of faith, my side of the coin of faith. Go with that. Then, and this is me talking, then the matter, which is everything, has to be divided into the basic elements, which is life, water, and all the materials is firmament. Now, is that directly word for word? But no, but it makes sense. And that's how I explained it. It makes sense to you because you're approaching the text with a certain presupposition. Absolutely, yes. And it is by it. Yes, I agree. And so is his. Like I said, we all have our presupposition. And I ask above, do you know of any biblical scholars that take this view of the firmament? Not no. This is my view, and I totally admit to it. So that's okay. I would think most of them would just go firmament. We don't care. I think try to give it somewhat of a rational explanation. You can either take it. I mean, I'm not saying for sure because the text is not clear. It's not, but there's a lot of places where the text is not clear, and we have to kind of, is it this? Is it that? And I freely tell you, this is my opinion. Okay, there you go. If so, who are they? Nope, don't have that. Would like to read more about firmament as matter. Again, that's my opinion. Of course, I also quoted the actual biblical text in my response to make it clear how nonsensical the interpretation was, according to you. It's just nonsensical according to you because you are materialistic. Just, I mean, and you're honest about that. Matter, water, we're all stuck on the matter, water thing. Okay. Great, really look forward to that. Needless to say, you are hooked on needing to have everything fit into your materialistic world view box, and if it does not, then it's automatically rejected. I think you made this exact point about 4 times your responsibility, and I'm going to keep making it. And yes, I have a physical worldview. Why? Because I have no good evidence that there's anything beyond outside of the physical universe. Really? No good evidence. None. I mean, come on, man. I mean, I don't do, the William Lake Craig stuff. I don't do, there's another guy out there, but he does the mathematical equations. He does, I mean, intelligent design. There, things just don't pop out of no place. Okay, they just don't. I mean, because if things, and William Lake Craig made that. I saw this. He was making this point, and I'm not a big fan of William Lake Craig. I'm not, but I did see this, and he said, if something came from nothing, then we should have all kinds of somethings popping up all over the place. That's a good point. So, anyway, you have no good evidence. You say, because I have no good evidence that there's anything beyond outside this physical universe. The thing is, if you you want to hold, feel, and touch it, and see it, and smell it, and that's the only way you believe. I mean, it's probably kind of stupid to you, but I love the Polar Express, and um, there where the Tom Hanks character says, believing is seeing, seeing is not believing. Yeah, it's kind of simplistic and childlike, but there's something to that. Could I be absolutely wrong? Absolutely. Okay. Am I open to good evidence that there is something more out than the physical world? I mean, the point is, it's everything you want for us to give you that has to be physical evidence. See, I can't prove the supernatural. Well, I can. See, that's the whole reason we know it's supernatural, because it doesn't fit into the physical world. Right? So, Michael Ramsden made the point that if I throw a ball, I expect that when I throw the ball, it's going to arch and then it's going to eventually land right on the ground. So it's going to leave my hand, it's going to fly through the air, and then at some point, gravity's going to pull it down and hit the ground. Right? I physically observe all that. Okay. Now the ball stops in midair and doesn't move. What just happened? Something outside of the physical nature. Hence why I know that for that to have happened, it had to be what? Outside this physical realm. Something reacted to it outside this physical realm. It had to be supernatural. So we all know that women who don't have sex with a man can't have babies. Well, then how did Mary have a baby? Well, it had to have been supernatural. And she even understood that, because she said to the angel, she says to Gabriel, how am I going to have a child? Because I know not a man. So she even knew, she understood the process. She understood that this doesn't happen. This can't happen. Right? How do dead people rise from the dead? They don't, unless something supernatural happens. So there is supernatural, okay, but you want it to be in the physical realm, and supernatural doesn't happen in the physical realm. Hence why we know it's supernatural. I don't know if that's a good explanation for you, but I'm going to go with it. Hey. Then I'm actually to see it, that you make assertions that providing evidence. I'm not going to hold my breath. Okay, please don't. I don't want you to pass out. If you think that only believing things for which there is sufficient evidence is more dogmatic than presupposition that a God exists, that the God created the universe and everything in it, and that God has a message that he wanted to convey to humans, and that the specific message he wanted to convey is the particular book that you revere, then I think you need to revisit the actual meaning of dogmatic. No, because you are unwilling to look at the other side that doesn't fit exactly what you want. So you want it to fit what you want it to be. And for me to sit there and say, don't look at it that way. Don't look at it that way. You have to suspend what you believe and actually here's my thing. I can work in a materialistic worldview, okay, and I can see it, and I can do science and the whole 9 yards, and it does not disrupt my Christian faith. Why? Why is that? Because I know that that's God working within the physical realm. That's God working in this physical realm. And I'm okay with that. But then I can also say that God is outside of this physical realm. Because if he's in this physical realm only, he's no different than me. He's not God then. So he has to be outside of this creation to be something else. So that's the remarkable part of the incarnation of Christ, because God so chose to leave his realm, which is outside of space and time, and to come into space and time and dwell amongst his creation. That's remarkable. But that's also allowing God to be God. And I think that's the other thing, is you're not willing to let him be. You want to make him fit and work in the physical realm at all times and apply only to the laws of the physical realm. And when he doesn't fit those, then you reject him automatically. But you are not allowing him to be who he is, which is a God that does not exist within time and space. Excuse me. He is the God that created time and space. Sorry. And he's the one who decides how everything works. And because he is the one who decides how everything works, okay, he is the one who gets to manipulate it. And so when he decides that there's going to be a supernatural event within the physical realm, it's going to look different and not conform to the physical laws in nature that you have decided upon are needed for evidence. That's God. That's you allowing God to be God, and not you wanting God to be man. So I kind of hope. I mean, I know this is not going to satisfy you on the answering side. No, dog. Good, Eddie. Stay over there. You gotta let God be God. You gotta let God be God. And God's purpose is not to rule and reign and make your life miserable, because I know that's what a lot of people think. They're like, God's here just, Eddie, you're getting on my nerves. God's creation over here is plucking my nerves. Um, did God create the heavens and the earth and everything for his glory? Absolutely. And I know that's one of your contentions. Why does something infinite need to be glorified? Because he's God, and because he said so. God makes the rules. We don't. You're trying to make the rules for God. It doesn't work that way. He makes the rules. He made the creation. He gets to define how things do, not us. So anyway, all right. I think that's going to do that for this one. Joe, appreciate it. Keep shoving them back there if you have more questions. Don't know if this is really making you happy, but hey, Keep plugging along. All right, brother. Everybody have a good day. God bless. We'll see you later.